the chat.
A little bit more. Why at the same time? Because I'm you and you're me. We switch bodies. Zubbed in the chat.
Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our...
Sophie Cunningham didn't bite her tongue after this one. And why would she? The Fever just let a winnable game slip right through their fingers, falling 88-84 against a Mystics squad buried at the bottom of the standings. Indiana had this game in the bag, up double digits, in control at halftime, until Washington punched back with a vicious 22-7 run that flipped the whole story with playoff positioning on the line. That collapse dropped the Fever to 7th place, and Sophie's post-game fire made it clear she wasn't here for sugarcoating. We'll get to her exact words. But they stung even more when compared to Stephanie White's soft excuses. So tell me, who do you blame for this meltdown? Do you think the coach cost them this one? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is about to get heated. Indiana actually built a 13-point cushion in the second quarter, leading 40-27, the kind of lead that should have broken the Mystics' spirit. Instead, it evaporated in minutes. Washington stormed back, dropping buckets with ease, hitting over 52% from the field and splashing big-time threes while Indiana's offense froze up like they'd forgotten how to hoop.
It was something like a 22-7 run, the end of the second, beginning of the third quarter. And those are hard to recover from anytime, really, but when you're missing pieces. And, we've got to make sure that we're sharper at times. We don't have the margin to have lulls within quarters. And then I believe they had something like 21 points from free throw line and turnovers of their 26 in the fourth. And, we control that, defending without fouling. We control that, taking care of the basketball, decision-making at times. And some of it's, playing some people out of position, and some of it's just not being, valuing the basketball in the way that we need to value it, being a little...
The building went dead silent as the momentum shifted right before everyone's eyes. And let's be real, this wasn't some superstar takeover on the other side. The Fever beat themselves. Turnovers stacked up, defensive lapses piled higher, and it turned into a highlight reel for Washington at the free throw line. Indiana racked up 21 fouls, handing the Mystics 26 shots at the stripe. Every sloppy pass, every lazy rotation, every careless foul. It all chipped away until the cushion was gone and the Fever were suddenly scrambling to survive. Let's set the record straight. This wasn't about refs. The scoreboard got wrecked because Indiana sabotaged itself with mistake after mistake. They had control until they just handed it away. And the sting. It wasn't even veterans doing the damage. It was Washington's fearless rookies putting on a show.
The Buckeyes.
Here is the Buckeye product on a backdoor pass, but Mitchell lost the handle. Sutton thought about the three, steps in, Hull got a piece. Dolson has been wide open all possession, splashes home a three, and we are level.
Sonia Citron looked like she'd been in the league for a decade, calmly dropping 21 points. Meanwhile, Kiki Iriafen went beast mode with 18 points and 12 boards, snatching second chances like she owned the paint. Every rebound she ripped away felt like another dagger in Indiana's chest. That wasn't empty production. That was proof that when Indiana stopped dictating the game, even a team still piecing together its identity could march right in and snatch a win. Sitting in 7th place, with playoff hopes hanging by a thread, letting two rookies dismantle your cushion is the kind of blunder that keeps coaches up at night. And don't get it twisted, Indiana had strong individual efforts. Aliyah Boston went to work inside, bullying her way to 20 points and 9 boards, the kind of numbers that scream, this should have been a win. Kelsey Mitchell set the table early, Sophie Cunningham brought raw energy, and Lexi Hull hustled her heart out on defense. The Stars didn't fold. They fought.
With 5 off the bench, Indiana has 8 first-quarter bench points. That's typically been a strength when they're playing well, as Iriafen just bullies her way inside. Now Citron being guarded by Lexi Hull. Hull goes over the screen, defends her really well. Citron just has to fire it up, and a circus shot for...
Which makes the collapse sting even worse. This wasn't about effort. It was about leadership and direction. The Fever didn't lose because Washington was better. They lost because they gave away possessions, let the Mystics control tempo, and had no answer once the tide turned. And that same brutal pattern has haunted Indiana all season long. Strong stretches keep vanishing into flat-out preventable collapses. Every time Indiana looks like they're taking a step forward, sloppy mistakes and zero adjustments drag them right back down. And at this stage of the season, with the playoff race tightening every single day, those late-game meltdowns sting 10 times worse. The pressing question, why was there no plan to protect the lead once it started slipping?
It into Boston. Hand off Mitchell. Indiana has to hurry. Lob back for Boston. Boston finishes. It's a 2-point game, 5.9 seconds.
Everyone in the arena felt the momentum shifting. Who was supposed to steady the ship, make the smart rotations, or call the counter that stopped the bleeding? The finger keeps pointing in one direction, and fans are already there with their frustration boiling over. Stephanie White's decisions are front and center in this mess, and nothing lit up fans more than Chloe Bibby's complete disappearance. Bibby's been cashing threes at 42% this season, yet somehow she logged 0 minutes in a game where Indiana's spacing collapsed and the perimeter went ice cold. Imagine benching one of your deadliest shooters on a night you desperately needed floor spacing. It makes no sense. White tried to explain it, saying she benched Bibby because of defensive matchups, worried about rebounding and coverage against Washington's size.
With a steal. Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in. So
they had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they were reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here. 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down. Now Sims launches ahead for Mitchell. What a pass by Odyssey Sims.
But then reality smacked everyone in the face. Indiana still gave up 26 free throws, still left shooters wide open, and still watched Kiki Iriafen muscle her way to dominance inside. So what exactly got protected? Fans aren't buying that excuse, because the defensive issues happened anyway, and the one player who could have opened the floor was stuck on the bench. Instead of answers, they're left asking why a proven shooter never even got a chance. And then White admitted what we all saw. The offense was stalling, too often turning into give Kelsey Mitchell the ball and pray she fights through 2 defenders. That's not strategy. That's surrender. That line, it was getting stuck. Those words have already become the rallying cry of the night because they sum up exactly what everyone saw.
Cunningham looking, finds Mitchell, launches a corner three. It won't go. Rebound Aiksler. And this young Washington Mystics group who continues to impress throughout this season. And Sidney Johnson in his first year comes up with a big win on.
The Fever's offense kept grinding into predictable ISO plays, and when that happens, the obvious counter is simple. Spread the floor, unleash shooters, give your stars room. But instead of opening things up with someone like Bibby, Indiana doubled down on funneling everything through Kelsey Mitchell, and it broke under the weight. The stats exposed the whole story. Mitchell went 6 for 19 from the field, dropping 14 points with 9 assists. She worked like a warrior, creating what she could, but she was forced to play both scorer and playmaker at the same time. That load would break anyone. Late in crunch time, the same ugly pattern repeated over and over. Mitchell driving into traffic, forcing shots against 2 and 3 defenders, while perimeter shooters just stood there untouched.
Indiana with their work cut out for them here. 6-point deficit, just over 5 minutes left to play. Mitchell, feed inside. There's an easy 2 for Boston. Cunningham leans in, thought she threw the foul. Boston pulls down the rebound and lays it in.
Nobody's blaming her decision-making. She fought through pressure like a pro. But when Washington packed the paint, Indiana's system turned into a clogged mess with zero imagination. And that's what eats at fans. Not just the loss, but the self-sabotage. This roster has legit shooters, veterans who fight every possession, and a rock and Aliyah Boston who gives you a reliable anchor inside. Yet somehow, instead of unleashing those weapons, the rotations and play calls box them in. Washington didn't beat Indiana with superstar heroics. They just cashed in on the Fever being painfully predictable. Every possession was easier to read than the last, and the Mystics looked like the ones in control without even having to do anything flashy. That's why the heat isn't falling on the players. It's falling squarely on strategy.
Inside.
What a pass by Melvin, too. Really nice.
Mitchell turns on the Jets and gets to the rim.
No one can keep Kelsey is one of the best rebounders out of her area, which means the ball not directly above her head is Cunningham with a steal.
Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in. So 4 quick ones for Indiana.
The roster bled for this game, pouring out everything they had, while the coaching moves dragged them down in the one moment where execution mattered most. And that brutal contrast? It's exactly why the outrage is boiling over tonight. You can question the rotations all night long, but you can't ignore how hard the players themselves fought to keep this from slipping away. They refused to roll over, even as the game tilted against them. Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and Odyssey Sims all delivered the kind of production and grit that usually seals a win. Boston was a force inside, 20 points and 9 rebounds, dragging Washington's defense into the paint every time she touched it.
I think we over-dribbled at times. Our off-ball movement wasn't there. We did a lot of standing. It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey and just tried to watch her work. And that's not when we're at our best. I mean, yes, certainly we want to have the ball in our hands, but we've got to continue to get movement with and without the basketball. It was getting stuck. I mean, we want to play 0.5 to 1 second basketball, and we weren't. And it's got to get.
Mitchell carried the dual role of scorer and floor general, posting 14 points and 9 assists. But the numbers don't even capture the burden she shouldered when the offense completely froze. Cunningham's 8 points came with an even bigger impact. 6 dimes, 3 steals, and the signature play of the night, picking off a pass and splashing a cold-blooded 3 on the break. Sims, barely 2 games into her hardship contract, showed no fear. 11 points, attacking every defender in sight, and providing the closest thing to a true point guard this team has right now. That kind of spark off the street is rare, and the context makes it even crazier. This team isn't just patching holes, they're flat out missing their backcourt foundation.
Till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow.
Caitlin Clark is still sidelined, and both Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald were lost to season-ending injuries in the same week. That left Indiana scrambling, desperate enough to sign Sims and Lambert just to stabilize a rotation gutted of its primary playmakers. So the fact that the Fever still built leads, still forced Washington to play from behind, and still fought every second, that says everything about the fight inside this roster. These players showed they had the heart. It's the direction above them that failed to match it. Boston had to carry an even bigger load inside. Mitchell's responsibilities doubled, and Sophie Cunningham slid into a facilitator role while still grinding on defense. Everyone was stretched, and you could see it, but they still kept punching back. Boston's presence in the paint was the stabilizer through every Washington run.
Tonight, were there thoughts maybe plugging her in to try and spark the offense a little bit, or what was the decision behind not playing her tonight?
Yeah, there were some thoughts. I think that it matched up defensively more than anything with the way that we were going to try to play them, or in some of our switches and things like that. So that was mostly the reason.
And then just with the rotation, was it just those eight or seven that you ran with? Was it just they were flowing well and you wanted to just leave that going, or what was the thought there?
Yeah, I think some of it was defense. Being able to execute the type of defensive coverages that we wanted to have against this, the way that they play.
She carved out deep position, demanded double teams, and either finished strong or kicked out to open shooters. Mitchell's constant drives kept the defense collapsing, opening space even when her own shots didn't drop. And then there was Cunningham's moment, that steal into a pull-up 3. It wasn't just points, it was a momentum jolt. Plays like that don't show up in plus-minus, but you feel them shake the game. Sims, too, proved why she was signed in the first place. She handled the rock, kept possessions alive, and gave the Fever a ball-handling stability they flat-out wouldn't have had without her. Without Sims, this game might have spiraled even earlier. That's why the frustration burned so hot. This team didn't lack production. Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, Sims all delivered.
On their ball screen coverages right now.
Here's Mitchell on the handoff, bounce pass. Boston one bounce and a left-handed finish. Here's Boston, the offensive rebound, flips inside to Howard, who lays it in.
You go step up screen, flare on the weak side. They had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they're reviewing that.
So Indiana with a 10-point lead here, 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down.
They didn't lack energy. They kept clawing and landing punches late into the fourth. What they lacked was adjustments, the tweaks, the counters, the strategy that turns those individual sparks into a closing plan that buries a struggling opponent. The numbers prove the players did enough to win. The film shows the fight was there too. But the gap, the sharp, glaring gap between what the roster put on the floor and how it was managed from the bench is what cut deepest. And once the press conference hit, that divide became impossible to ignore because the players' words and the coach's words painted two very different pictures. Sophie Cunningham's post-game honesty hit completely different from Stephanie White's explanations, and that contrast told you everything about where this team stands right now.
What was the message inside the locker room? Like, what were you guys talking about there after the game?
Yeah, I just think that we've had some hard injuries this year. We've had some different lineups and roster spots. And, to be frank, I don't think anyone else around the league thinks that we can do it anymore. But I think that our group does. And I think that we just have to get that confidence back. When we're clicking offensively, defensively, we're scary. And not a lot of teams can beat us, even with the roster that we have right now. And so for us, it's just remembering who we are. It's our identity. We got to get back to being dogs, got to get back to being aggressive, being on our front foot, and not allowing teams like this to come in here. And
Sophie didn't bother with polite spin. She cut straight through it. We've had hard injuries, but we have to get back to being dogs. That wasn't just a locker room cliche. It was a challenge, plain and simple. Her words were an unfiltered reality check. Opponents don't fear the fever right now. Teams see Indiana as vulnerable, as exploitable, and Sophie demanded that edge come back. The grit, the toughness, the fight that keeps mistakes from piling up like bricks on their own backs. Now line that up against White's response. The coach circled back to her now familiar refrain. The offense kept getting stuck, turning into Mitchell isolation plays. She also pointed at the fouling, noting the Fever committed 21 of them, sending Washington to the line 26 times, including a brutal 14 free throws in the fourth quarter alone. And sure, she wasn't wrong to highlight fouling as a key issue. But here's the problem. She didn't address the part that was in her control. Identifying symptoms after the fact isn't the same as owning the decisions that caused them.
That we just have to continue to do that kind of got us on the run we had before the last couple games was we were aggressive at the opponent attack on defense, and that led to easy transition buckets. That led to everyone being aggressive and on their front foot on the offensive end. And we have new players, and that's okay, but we just have to adjust, and we need them. We've faced a lot of adversity, but we should be used to that by now. And I think they could just kind of outwork this a little bit, and
That's the real divide. Fans heard Sophie speaking in urgent, real terms, demanding accountability, demanding fight, while White's words stopped short of owning the in-game calls that could have shifted everything. Imagine the floor spacing if Bibby had been out there to stretch the defense. Imagine fresher legs if rotations had actually expanded. Those choices could have freed Mitchell from forcing shots into double teams, could have prevented the fatigue that led to sloppy positioning and late fouls. Instead, the players fought tooth and nail through the snowball effect, and the coach stood at the podium afterward, explaining how it all got stuck. For fans, that disconnect cuts deep. They're watching players like Boston and Cunningham step up, take accountability, and demand more from themselves. Then they hear the coach point to broad issues without owning her own role. That sends one message loud and clear. Leadership is out of sync with the urgency the players are showing. Nobody's asking for perfection, especially with this roster gutted in the backcourt.
Sophie commits a hard foul on JC Sheldon. Again, as JC Sheldon is going up for a layup, Sophie bear hugs her and takes her to the ground. What I will say is Sophie did not grab her and throw her to the ground. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm gonna give you guys my straight up honest opinion on this. She bear hugged her, took her to the ground. Yes, it was intentional.
But the expectation is simple. Everyone has to pull the same rope. That means players and coaches owning their part when the team collapses. Right now, the players are proving they're ready to carry the load, while the coach keeps offering explanations that feel like deflections. So here's the burning question. Should Stephanie White be held accountable for these decisions? Is this more about coaching tactics, the injury crisis, or just a roster stretched past its limit? Let us know in the comments. Is this on the sideline, on the roster, or just bad luck snowballing at the worst time? And the bigger question looms even larger. Should White be replaced now, or backed until Clark and the backcourt foundation return?
The outside things, you can't control injuries, and so that's why you really do have to control your mental and control what you can control. And I think that we have a really good group. We're still a tight-knit group. We're adding new players in that are amazing. O's been around the league for a long time, and I know you don't think so, but it's a blessing that you were on another team because we need you here. And so I just think it's an adjustment period. The highs and lows, you just have to stay kind of steady, right? You know, every team faces it. I feel like we faced it more than most this year, but I think this is going to set us up for something good. I don't know if it's this season. I don't know if it's next season, but I think there's always something that you can be grateful for and learn during those.
That decision will frame how the Fever finish this season, because this isn't about one bad night. It's about what happens if Indiana doesn't close the split between the players' effort and the leadership's direction. The longer that gap exists, the harder it'll be to hold on to playoff positioning in a race where every stumble counts double. And make no mistake, this Washington loss wasn't just another stumble. It was a winnable 88-84 game that slipped away, knocking Indiana into 7th place as the regular season clock keeps ticking down. The players delivered, Boston with 20 and 9, Mitchell with 14 and 9, Cunningham's all-around grind with 8, 6, and 3. But the direction from above didn't. The fallout from this one is already spilling beyond just the scoreboard. Media outlets, podcasts, and fan forums are all circling the same point. Stephanie White's seat is officially getting warm. When your players are grinding, taking accountability, and speaking with urgency, but the coach is leaning on explanations that dodge responsibility, that gap doesn't just stay inside the locker room, it leaks into the narrative. And right now, that narrative is ugly. 7th place, a shrinking margin for error, and a team that looks like it has the fight but not the direction.
Errors taking a toll?
You know, not really. And I think that she kind of hit it. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace. You know, when you have so many different lineups, O and I have never played together. O hasn't played with a lot of people, maybe Tosh. But like you have to know her style. She has to know our style. And so it's different, but that's part of being a pro. You got to adjust and you got to learn fast. And I think that's a really cool thing too, because when you click, you click. And so that's scary for people coming in here.
People are asking if this season is about to turn into wasted potential. The Fever should not be in this position. With Aliyah Boston producing like a franchise cornerstone, with Sophie Cunningham turning into the vocal heartbeat, with Kelsey Mitchell dragging defenses through sheer will. This is a core that should be dictating games, not collapsing in them. And yet, here we are, breaking down how Indiana let 2 rookies from a bottom-of-the-standings team flip a 13-point cushion into a devastating loss.
See, she's the problem. She is the problem.
Sophie takes the card, grabs the pen, and writes across the front. Property of Sophie Cunningham. That's not a scribble. That's a declaration. That's, you want to press our star? Cool. Here's the bill. It's also a memo to the rest of the league.
Fans can accept injury setbacks. They can accept tough breaks. But what they won't accept is avoidable collapse after collapse with no sign of growth in the adjustments. That's why people are now asking the real question. Is Stephanie White the one to guide this group into the playoffs? Or is she the obstacle standing in the way? Because here's the truth. Every game from here on out isn't just about playoff positioning. It's about defining what kind of franchise the Fever want to be. Do they double down on accountability and edge, the way Sophie demanded? Or do they keep drifting under coaching explanations that never translate into solutions? This Washington loss wasn't the end. It might just be the beginning of a much bigger storm in Indiana. Howard's inside hustle gave the Fever extra help, and Sims added 11 clutch points off a hardship deal. But when the dust settled, the coaching decisions once again defined the night. And this time, they left the biggest questions hanging at the worst possible moment. Cunningham said it best: "We have to get back to being dogs. That's the standard the players are setting."
Cunningham has been Caitlin Clark's biggest cheerleader and defender.
And it literally like pisses me off when people are like, she's not the face of the league.
Who would be?
What? When people try to argue that she's not the face of our league, or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as You're literally dumb as.
The sad truth about this video we just watched is she is the first WNBA player I have seen to openly say this out loud, publicly, and not be ashamed.
Meanwhile, Stephanie White keeps pointing at fouls, a stalled-out offense, and Caitlin Clark's continued absence with no timetable in sight. The contrast couldn't be sharper. The players are demanding edge and urgency, while the coach is offering explanations that don't answer what fans are screaming to know. So now it's on you? Why do you think the Fever lost this one? Do you believe Stephanie White should be trusted to coach this group through the rest of the season, or is it time for a change? Drop your take in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share. And turn on all notifications so you never miss a moment. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.